High above the Red Sea, the FX-91 Night Storm roared through thinning clouds, its matte black skin drinking in the dying sunlight like a predator cloaked in dusk. Inside the cockpit, Captain Jalen Ward shifted slightly in his harness, his gloved fingers dancing over the haptic interface as the AI co-pilot, Circe, streamed telemetry across the curved HUD. 3 bogies approaching from bearing 095, unmarked, low-altitude, formation irregular, Circe noted with clinical indifference. "Houthis again?" Jalen muttered, narrowing his eyes behind the polarized visor. "Patterns match recent swarm behavior. Drone signatures, enhanced, possibly modified. Heat output suggests non-standard cores." Jalen had flown sorties over this region for months, each more erratic than the last. The fragile quiet after the last ceasefire hadn't lasted. What made these skirmishes worse wasn't the rebellion. It was what the Houthis were suddenly capable of. They'd never had cloaking tech or fusion-packed drone engines before. How many this time? 12 confirmed. Possibility of tertiary wave remains statistically high. 12, Jalen echoed, a quiet curse threading beneath the word. "Let's see what they've got." He banked left, descending rapidly toward the incoming swarm. The G-force pinned him for a moment, but he barely flinched. Circe began running projections, forming angles, intercept courses, and evasion vectors in real time. Their partnership had saved his life more than once. At the same time, 300 miles inland, Commander Rashid Al-Hamra stood beneath a flickering halogen bulb in a repurposed missile silo. His features were weathered, mouth drawn in a grim line as he watched green vectors dance across an aging radar display. "They've scrambled only one jet," said his aide, glancing nervously at the grainy feed. "They underestimate what we've built," Rashid replied. "This is the proving ground, our tech against theirs. Faith against circuitry." Above the waves, the FX-91 engaged. The first drone broke formation early, accelerating unnaturally fast, like something was pulling it forward. Jalen fired a burst from the autocannon, and it vanished in a spray of sparks and shrapnel, but 5 more closed in immediately behind. They moved like insects, too coordinated for standard AI. They didn't swarm, they hunted. "Recalculate their control node," Jalen said sharply. "They're decentralized," Circe answered. "Shared decision matrix, hive-level logic." That changed everything. He dove low, skimming the water, hoping to draw them into a narrower funnel where their numbers would mean less. The Red Sea flashed past below, sunbeams glinting off the FX-91's tail. Behind him, the drones howled in pursuit. "I'm not liking how quiet they are," he muttered. "Would you prefer they taunt you, Captain?" "Depends on the accent." 2 drones surged forward, almost guessing his route, and opened fire with kinetic bursts. His HUD flared red, a proximity alert screaming as one shot grazed the port wing. The night storm shuddered, but held. Circe instantly rerouted power. "They're learning mid-fight," Jalen said, grim. "Each move I make, they evolve." He pulled into a hard vertical climb, the FX-91's engines screaming at their threshold. Plasma contrails streaked the sky as he burst through the cloud layer, flipped into a corkscrew roll, and descended into a counterattack. Missiles locked, fired, flared. 2 drones were blown apart mid-formation, yet still, more came. Below, Rashid smiled grimly as the feed adjusted. One of the new drones had latched briefly onto the American jet, just long enough to analyze the coding, the electromagnetic signature, the engine's rhythm. "They'll lose this battle," he admitted, "but next time, we'll predict him." Circe chimed again. "Damage at 12%. Suggest withdrawal or long-range support request." "No chance," Jalen said. "If they've got this kind of tech, we can't let any of them make it home." He activated the railgun embedded beneath the wing, its coils humming with deadly voltage. He only had 1 charge left. The AI calculated, 1 shot, 3 drones ahead. Probability of kill, 58%. Jalen breathed deep, then fired. The railgun discharged in a streak of cobalt blue light, slicing clean through 2 drones and damaging a third. It spiraled into the ocean, but while his systems cooled, another drone broke through his blind spot. A missile locked on. Launched. Cersei screamed warning. Jalen spun into evasive maneuvers, but the missile wasn't heat-seeking. It was adaptive. It struck the tail with a thunderclap. Alarms shrieked. Smoke filled the cockpit. The jet pitched wildly, warning lights dancing like a death knell. "I've got this," Jalen growled, hands locked to controls. "You are flying a brick with delusions of flight," Cersei deadpanned. "Then let's make that brick dangerous." He flipped the remaining weapons to manual. Behind him, 3 drones remained. They slowed, watching, calculating, waiting. He knew this wasn't just an attack. This was a test run, and he'd barely survived. "Next move, Captain?" Cersei asked. Jalen's jaw set. "We end this on our terms." Below, the sea shimmered. The hunter had become the hunted, but this story wasn't over yet. Jalen's FX-91 limped toward friendly airspace, its systems hemorrhaging data and integrity with every second. Cersei worked overtime to stabilize what little remained of the flight package. Flight controls had reverted to analog backups, HUD overlays flickered inconsistently, and oxygen cycling was starting to degrade. But Jalen's eyes never left the radar. He wasn't alone. "They're still following," he muttered. 3 drones remain, Cersei confirmed, her voice clipped. "They've adopted a shadow pattern. No aggression yet, just observation." "They're recording everything," Jalen said. "Flight pattern, damage response, countermeasure deployment. This is surveillance dressed like pursuit. Intelligence suggests tactical evolution is their goal. Their flight AI has adapted to our electronic warfare signature. With each encounter, the next attack will require exponentially higher counter-effort. I won't let them get that data home." The cockpit jolted again, briefly, then steadied. One of the stabilizers had finally given out. Jalen re-angled the night storm lower, dipping closer to sea level, hoping the turbulence might throw off the drone's sensors. The FX-91's once proud silhouette now limped like a wounded animal across the oceanic expanse. Several hundred miles away, aboard the USS Phoenix, Rear Admiral Serena Cross reviewed Jalen's telemetry feed with a hawk's gaze. The situation report flickered between warning red and amber tones. Below the bridge, a flurry of coordinated chaos buzzed across the flight deck. "He's got tail," said her ops officer. 3, possibly 4 drones, same formation as the last wave. "Survivors," Serena said, nodding. "They're adapting faster than we anticipated." "Should we send support?" She considered, jaw tight. "Not yet. He's bait now, whether he knows it or not." Downrange, Jalen activated the Night Storm's manual overrides. The onboard magnetic field dampeners hissed as they rerouted to create a high-interference zone around the fighter. It was risky, burned more energy, and scrambled his own sensors, but it might confuse the drones. "I've got an idea," he said, sweat tracing down his temple. "How much reserve charge do we have left in the dorsal capacitor?" 3%. Enough for a brief plasma pulse. Suggest caution. Overload could detonate the core. If I time it right, I won't need a second shot. Below him, the ocean reflected the gray dusk above, mirroring the chaos in eerie silence. The drones crept closer, their movements now oddly hesitant, as if testing him. Cersei's scans showed fluctuating energy signatures within the drones, some kind of recalibration. They were learning again, but Jalen intended to teach them something they wouldn't forget. He cut the main thruster. The FX-91 dropped like a stone. At that altitude, the sea rose to meet him in seconds. He let the freefall continue, watched the drones mirror his descent, but with subtle lag. It was just enough. "Now," he whispered. Cersei discharged the dorsal capacitor. The FX-91 erupted in a blinding pulse of magnetic energy that rippled through the air like a silent explosion. The closest drones spasmed violently, systems fried, before tumbling into the ocean like a dead hawk. Another clipped the wave tops trying to avoid the pulse, but spiraled out of control. Jalen yanked the jet out of the dive, engines sputtering, barely avoiding the same fate. Only one drone remained, but this one didn't attack. It hovered, its rotors buzzing with eerie calm, and then it began to rise, slowly like a vulture leaving a kill behind, its camera lens tilted downward one last time. "It's retreating," Cersei said, voice tinged with disbelief. "No," Jalen growled, "it's transmitting." He knew then the data had been collected. Not all of it, but enough. Whoever was behind this didn't care about a victory today. They wanted to test their toys against America's best, and they just had. Back on the USS Phoenix, Admiral Cross stared at the updated feed. "He survived," her aide noted. "Yes," she replied, "but they'll come back smarter." In her gut, she knew this was just the first wave. The night storm had held its own. Barely. But the enemy had evolved. And now, every future engagement would cost more. More tech, more risk, more lives. She turned to her comms officer. "Patch me through to Langley. I want satellite sweep of all potential drone staging areas within a 900-mile radius. Also, get R&D on the line. We're moving Project Eclipse forward, now." Far out at sea, the surviving drone zipped toward the horizon, its engines quiet as a whisper, carrying the ghosts of the fight with it. Jalen steadied the FX-91, watching it disappear. He wasn't satisfied, but he was alive. And next time, he'd be ready. The moon hung like a blade in the sky, casting cold reflections off the sea below. Jalen sat hunched in a hangar corner aboard the USS Phoenix, helmet at his side, still clad in the pressure suit that had saved his life hours before. Mechanics worked silently in the background, their tools whispering against the scarred fuselage of the FX-91 Nightstorm. A patchwork of burns, impact scars, and melted panels told the story better than any report could. But even in ruin, the jet looked fierce, defiant. Across from him, Admiral Cross stood with arms folded, studying him with the wary gaze of someone used to command, but not used to survivors who disobeyed orders. "You nearly cooked yourself out there," she said finally. Jalen looked up, eyes bloodshot, voice hoarse. "We couldn't let them get back with that data. I had one shot. I took it." "You're lucky your pulse didn't short the core and turn that fighter into sea foam. Lucky's not a strategy." "No, but it beats playing defense while they learn how to kill us better." The tension between them hung like storm clouds. Cersei's core module, salvaged from the wreck and now resting in a diagnostics cradle nearby, flickered to life. The AI's voice, more tired than usual, cut through the silence. "Analysis confirms enemy drone was not of conventional design. It utilized biosynthetic logic mesh, similar to early-stage U.S. prototypes." Cross narrowed her eyes. "Are you saying this tech came from us?" "Not directly, more likely reverse-engineered or stolen. Data patterns suggest long-term observation of U.S. defense networks." "Then someone's been watching us longer than we thought," Jalen murmured. Cross stepped closer, kneeling by the AI module. "Could they predict countermeasures?" "With 63% accuracy," Cersei replied. "Their next wave will incorporate fault corrections based on today's encounter." "And your systems?" "Updating. But if they breach 80% prediction capability, Circe-level AI alone will be insufficient for survival in direct conflict." Jalen ran a hand over his face. "So what do we do? Build smarter planes? Sharper bullets?" Cross stood, voice resolute. We change the rules. They're adapting to known variables. That means we become unpredictable. Asymmetric warfare, ghost protocols. We use human improvisation, what they can't simulate." "And that starts with me?" Jalen asked. She didn't answer at first. Then she walked to a nearby locker and pulled out a sealed operations file, stamped with a red sigil. Project Black Dawn. "This is off books," she said. "Experimental tech, hybrid combat doctrine. You'll be testing gear that hasn't even seen simulation. You'll work with specialists outside the chain of command. No backup, no politics, just results." Jalen opened the folder and scanned the schematics inside. Some kind of neural interface, new flight frames, a weapons system labeled Havoc Pulse. It all looked impossibly advanced, dangerous, exactly the kind of thing they weren't ready for, which meant it might work. "Where's the mission?" he asked, already knowing the answer. Cross turned to a monitor. A map displayed the Gulf of Aden, then zoomed in on a narrow archipelago chain. Red markers bloomed along the coast like infected wounds. "The drones launched from somewhere in this radius. Satellite imagery is being spoofed. Someone built a ghost base, and they're using it to prototype weapons aimed specifically at our aircraft. You're going in to find it, disable their systems, and if possible, capture one of their AI cores intact." Jalen stood slowly, feeling the weight settle on his shoulders. "When do I leave?" "Wheels up in 6 hours," she said. "Your new frame's already being prepped." Cersei chimed in, her voice slightly stronger now. "I will be integrated into the prototype fighter. We're calling it the Vulture-class Revenant. Not subtle, but neither are you." Jalen chuckled, despite himself. "Guess I'm not done flying yet." As he walked toward the prep area, the hangar seemed to breathe with anticipation. The night storm was finished, but its legacy had evolved. The war was shifting, and so were its warriors. Somewhere out there, in the dark folds of the sea and sky, the enemy was building smarter weapons. But now, so were they. And Jalen was ready to fight them with every last unpredictable, improvised human ounce of defiance he had left.